I've been trying really hard to record audio for a few book reviews. I'm recording 4 different book reviews tonight, and it's been exceptionally hard for me because one of the conditions that I have, which I've been very honest about, I tend to become manic, and when I'm manic, I talk too fast. And instead of slowing down my audio, I'm trying to just steady myself. But when I read books like Last Ride by Langston, it gets me worked up, and then I'm talking so fast that even I don't know what I'm saying. So, The Last Ride has one thing going for it, but I can't really use it as it doesn't deserve a bad grade, because the author still manages to screw it up. So the book's about a guy named Tom, 16-year-old kid, who used to do drag racing, but his friend Logan was killed a year prior in a drag race that he and Logan were in. So now he can't get past what happened. He's very traumatized by it. Laura Langston actually does a good job portraying PTSD. Well, for instance, there are certain things Tom can't do anymore. He can't drag race without thinking about Logan. Certain smells and sounds and stuff cause him to have flashbacks and trigger bad memories again, like a lot of people with PTSD, myself included. But as I said, she manages to screw it up towards the end, which just beautiful, Laura. Just mwah, very tasty meatball of mediocrity you have formed here, ma'am. The rest of this book is just shit. It's a big old pile of dookie. So starting off, Tom works at I guess you could say a garage. He works at this car garage with this really, underhanded, skeevy asshole named Ray. And the reason he's working there is he owes Ray, $25,000. He and his friend Logan managed to rack up a $25,000 debt trying to work on an Acura. Let me see here. Last I checked... Man, that's a fucking soccer mom car. Alright, yeah, I'm sure someone's probably gonna comment and tell me, hey, with the right amount of work, any car can be a drag racing car, but from the pictures I'm looking at, this looks like one of them soccer mom cars, Like mom gets up in the morning, she's gotta take oldest 2 to soccer, gotta take the youngest one to preschool. They all wake up late, and she's desperately trying to get around. Of course, the youngest one's throwing a fit because I'm cranky because he didn't go to bed until 3 o'clock the night before. Yeah, that's what an Acura looks like. Is that desperate soccer mom car. Anyway. So yeah, he racks up a $25,000 debt. But the thing that gets me is, one, the debt itself is incredibly redundant. Because you have this subplot of, $25,000 that he owes Ray. But then there's also the subplot of there's a bunch of hospital bills his mom's trying to pay, and because of that, they're going to lose the house. So why is there 2 debts in the book? The book itself's only 120 pages long. You've got these 2 coinciding subplots. Coinciding is the right word, right? Well, if it's not, stone me. Anyway, you have these 2 subplots involving debts that, like I said, are incredibly redundant. The story would have made more sense if it was just the medical bills, and they're looking down the throat of homelessness, and Tom is working for Ray, and Ray tells him, okay, here, listen, if you do this drag race for me, and win me money in this drag race, I'll give you half of it. And that's all the money that Tom needs to save the house. And then this plot of the story could be him dealing with his PTSD, and learning, okay, look, I don't want to race anymore, but to save my mom and save my home, I'm gonna have to do it. And that would have been a much better plot than what we got, which is basically Tom trying to save his car because he was stupid and racked up a debt, and then he has a crush on his dead friend's girlfriend, and that's it. And then at the end, he ends up throwing the race. Ray tells him, okay, look, if you win this race, I get $6,000, so you get 3, I get 3. And then that 3 would have been enough for Tom to save his family's home. But instead, he just throws the race, gives up his car, and in the last chapter, there's this really sloppily written paragraph where the author's like, oh, and the government helped his family, so they kept the car. Or, pardon, they kept the house. So it's like the author didn't know how to wrap up the subplot of them maybe losing the house, so instead his mom just decides to rent out the basement or the attic, and suddenly the government's like, oh, yeah, if you're gonna do that, then we'll see to it you keep the house. There's also some other things in this book. Well, by other things, I mean one more thing about this book that honestly, the reason it gets such a piss-poor grade for me is because of this alone. I am not the type of person to search for misogyny in things. If it exists, you can bet your ass I'm going to say something, but I am not some hypersensitive little ninny that sits online, someone sneezes, and I'm like, oh my god, that's so offensive to women. Alright? I'm not that kind of person. But believe me when I say that this book is incredibly misogynistic towards Hannah, Tom's love interest. And hold on, I gotta get the book. Let me get the book. So I knew something was wrong. Because on page 21, Tom ends up going to a party, and there's this other guy there that's supposed to be like, he's combating for Hannah's affection. His name's Cole, like C-O-L-E, Cole. He's there for like a second and never shows up again. I think he shows up one more time in the book. Oh no, he doesn't show up. He's mentioned one more time. So he only shows up on page 21. And Tom, who is our narrator, says, but only one of us can have her. Only one of us deserves her. Deserves her. I'm guessing Laura was trying to make it sound like he looked at Hannah like some beautiful angel, and the thought of having her in his life amazed him. But no, deserves her. Like she's some kind of fucking bag of candy that you can walk into the dollar store and buy off the shelf. Well, I deserve this. There's also this one scene in the book where Hannah's trying to talk to Tom about Logan. You know, the friend that died that has left Tom with mental scars and he can't get over his friend's death. Yeah, she's trying to talk to him about it, and the entire time he's just staring at her tits. Just staring at her tits, because they're there. And don't get me wrong, I like a set of tits. I really do. But if you take into consideration what's going on at the moment, he's like, oh, I'm just looking at her breasts, the way that her breasts are in her sweater, while she's talking to him about the friend that he loved so much that it's destroyed him, that Logan's gone. But no, I'm gonna look at this chick's tits instead. What Tom says he is, and the evidence that we're given for it makes no sense. He says he's traumatized that Logan's gone, and for the most part he is, but then he pulls shit like that. And I understand, he's a 16-year-old, and some 16-year-olds can be little dickheads. And, you know, now that I've said that, I'm probably gonna have some 16-year-old kid typing in the comment section, I'll have you know, I'm different. Well, if you have to tell me you're different, not only are you easily offended, but you're not different. But the absolute best thing, alright? Page 36. Tom and Hannah are in this, like, college prep class, and they're told by their teacher to write out, like, their strengths and weaknesses and, like, their personalities. So Tom's reading the ones that Hannah wrote for herself, and he says, I skimmed her strengths, caring and considerate, organized, and her weaknesses. Okay. Her weaknesses are stubborn, judgmental, and opinionated. Opinionated. Now, we can't have them there women having opinions. That can't happen. Before you know it, they'll want to vote. They'll want to make decisions about their body. They'll want to get a job. They'll want to decide that they don't want to be housewives. We can't have that. We can't have any of that. And it all starts with us letting women have them their opinions. Christ. Laura Langston literally wrote that it is a weakness for a woman to be opinionated. Alright, so I'm thinking one of two things. Either she's a bitch to her female characters and just didn't give a shit about what she was writing, or I think maybe she meant argumentative. When I was in school, I had this sociology class, and there was this fedora-wearing motherfucker that used to sit in the front row, and he would argue about everything. Seriously. He was opinionated, sure, but to the point that he was just argumentative. He loved to argue so much that he would argue with people who shared the same opinion as him. It was very frustrating. And if she meant that, if she meant argumentative, alright, but she wrote opinionated, which is awful. Like, really awful. And also, just as a side note, before I finally give this book the rating it deserves, every character in this book is a piece of shit. If the characters aren't either forgettable, like Tom's mom, or being objectified, like Hannah, they're just sleazebags. There's this dude named Santiago, right? The dude's 30 years old. Hannah walks by and he starts checking out her ass. He even says, nice ass. He's 30, she's 16. Obviously, this book is going to get a 0. Because not only is everything that I just mentioned awful, but with the whole PTSD thing, I mentioned that even though I liked where she was trying to go with it, the author still managed to screw it up. Basically, when Tom finally gets behind the wheel for the first time since his friend's death, his PTSD just magically disappears. Seriously, it's gone, goodbye, he's cured. PTSD does not work that way. Now it can get better. You can take medication, you can get therapy, you can do whatever you have to live a full life with the condition, but you're always going to have it. Now, if she didn't mean for it to come across as PTSD, and she meant for it just to be like he's having a hard time getting over it, but finally being able to get behind the wheel helped him realize, okay, I can move on from Logan, that's fine. But she shouldn't have framed it as PTSD, which she did. Flashbacks, having a hard time doing certain things because it reminds you of the trauma, certain things triggering the flashbacks, nightmares, that is PTSD. And I feel like she probably should have done research to figure out how best to deal with or create a character with that condition, because she didn't do well towards the end when it came to handling the condition. So yeah, The Last Ride gets a 0. Honestly, I've given out so many zeros this year. I don't know, maybe I'm just kind of a snob when it comes to books, but really people just need to stop being shitty writers. It's not too much to ask. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.